Hello again, everybody, and welcome back for another round of top 5 prospects at each position in the Cardinals organization. Today we're doing the shortstops. A very unusual and unique group, and I have to be honest, it's a deep group. It's pretty exciting. We'll start with the guy we know. We know Alex Mejia. Alex is 26. He came up and hit a big 2-run home run against the Washington Nationals that gave the Cardinals a big win. He is a sure-handed defender at shortstop, second base, and third. He's a really solid utility player who has just outrighted off the 40-man back to Memphis. And to compare him to Breivik Valera, who stayed on the 40-man while Mejia got the downing. It kind of shows you where the Cardinals stand with him. Personally, I think he has value to the organization as a super defender in a pinch. But I get what they did, and I understand it. There isn't a whole lot to talk about Mejia other than that he was an amazing player at the Pac-12 for Arizona. And I'm a big fan of him personally from a minor league perspective as an organizational depth guy who did a ton for the organization with his time here. As we get into our top 5 prospects, it has to start with one guy, and that one guy is Delvin Perez. As the first line in my little thing here goes, I'm only 31 years old, but Delvin Perez makes me feel like Clint Eastwood's character in El Torino. But instead of the classic line, "Get off my lawn," I'm shouting, "Stop posting selfies on Twitter." Again, I know it's so immature of me to even say, but there's a certain amount of maturity in his game that needs to happen. He was sat for a couple games because he threw his helmet and said some expletives and dropped his bat in an aggressive manner after striking out in an important situation early on in the Johnson City season. He has all the talent. People are worried about his svelte figure. He's gotten smaller. Some people think it's steroid related. Some people think the loss of power is steroid related. He brings those accusations upon himself with his past. But I would also caution that those are some pretty serious allegations to be throwing around. It's not out of place to wonder, but to sling arrows like that, it's just not fair to do to an 18-year-old kid who's still trying to get his legs underneath him. He's 19 now. He just turned 19. But the talent is all there. It's just a matter of him dedicating himself, bulking up so that he can last longer than a couple of weeks at a time, and rededicating himself to the position. Can't play in the major leagues if you're not mature. Just that simple. Number 2 on our list is really interesting. 2 and 3, they ended up switching spots. Initially, my number 3, who's Tommy Edman, was 2, and Edmundo Sosa was 3. But now Edmundo is 2nd, and a lot of that had to do with what he did in the Arizona Fall League. Now, the thing to remember about Sosa is that he started the year at Palm Beach, and then was able to have 4 at-bats in Springfield before he hurt himself, and then lost the rest of the season until September, or until the end of August, rather. Lost the rest of his season to that injury. So he was sent to Arizona to get the at-bats that he lost, and it took him a while to come around, but in the last 2 weeks in the Fall League, he brought his average up above 300. He took some walks, which he hadn't done. He took 3 walks in the last 2 weeks, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when in the prior 4 he didn't walk at all, it goes to show you what kind of improvements he made, and he started hitting extra base hits. Sosa is a former top prospect who just fell off. There was some questions about his work ethic. There was some questions about his ability to slug. But I'll tell you what, if he keeps doing what he did in Arizona, we'll all be able to get behind it. He's a really interesting, a really intriguing player who I personally I've never been a big fan of, but I've become a big fan in these last couple weeks watching him hold his own. He's stockier than I gave him credit for, too. He's really beefed up. Like, he's gotten stronger. And, the other thing about Sosa is that his stock took a big hit because his defense, which was his bread and butter, stopped being his bread and butter. And as a matter of fact, it looked like the Cardinals were going to have to move him off a shortstop, but he looks pretty sure-handed now again at short, at second, and at third. So he's an interesting guy. Hopefully his 2018 isn't injury-riddled, and hopefully we can talk about him in a positive light again in a year. Number 3 on our list, as I mentioned, is Tommy Edman. Tommy Edman was a 2016 pick out of Stanford. We all know that the Stanford guys, they can take the ball to all fields. They have great approaches. There's a question about the driving, the ability to drive the ball. We've seen it from Stephen Piscotty, Danny D. Kroger between Piscotty and Edman. What I know about Edman is that he started in Peoria and was great. He got promoted to Palm Beach, and because of Sosa's injury, he had to go to Springfield. And he wasn't ready for Springfield. And he held his own to a degree. He still struggled mightily at AA. That was to be expected. That's a tough assignment for a kid of that level. He's small, but he makes some spectacular plays at shortstop. He'll definitely stick there. He has a stronger arm than I give him credit for, and it's getting stronger. The Cardinals actually have a history now of helping to strengthen arms of middle infielders. At third base, Wisdom always had a strong arm, but they helped to refine it. They did it with Paul DeYoung. They've done it with Sosa. They're doing it with Edman now. So that's worth getting excited about. The rumor is our number 4 guy they're working with too. Get to that in a second. I have a tendency to jump over myself. But I think Edman is in store for a big year. And I hope he starts back in Springfield because that's where he should be. That's, starting 2018. He shouldn't have ended there, but he should begin there. Number 4 on our list, and also, my former colleague over at the Redbird Daily, Kellen Gardner, loves Edman. He and I were fortunate enough to see him. Kellen's seen him a bunch, and he's a really impressive young man. Moving on to number 4 on our list is our 4th round pick out of 2017, Kramer Robertson out of LSU. Kramer replaced my favorite player in all of Major League Baseball, Alex Bregman, as the everyday shortstop at LSU after Bregman was drafted. Robertson has a history of some weird stuff in his past, being held off of a College World Series roster, as a matter of fact, because of maybe some aggressive issues. Kramer held his own. He did really well in a small taste of Peoria, which is where he probably should have been. I've been giving him credit for holding his own at Peoria, but, in all honesty, that's probably about what he was seeing in the College World Series. So that's a pretty smooth transition. I see in 215 at-bats, he had 12 doubles and 3 home runs, which is a solid amount of extra bases at the end of a very long season. And a pretty solid slash line of a 270 on base, or a 270 batting average and a 351 on base percentage. I would like to see that that actually stay steady. That's better than I could have imagined. He's an aggressive swinger, so to have an on base percentage of 351 is impressive to me. I don't know if that's sustainable actually, so hopefully he sustains it. He let off a bunch for Peoria, and he was not afraid to swing at the first pitch of the game ever. I saw him do it on 4 straight occasions. So, don't take that for anything. Things change. Sometimes in the minor leagues, guys are leading off just to get the at-bats. It has nothing to do with them, being leadoff hitters or projected as leadoff hitters. Sometimes it's just about getting them more at-bats. I like Kramer. As I mentioned, the Cardinals are working with him to strengthen his arm, and that's an absolute necessity because his arm is not strong enough to play short. Personally, I think he's a perfect little second baseman. I think that's where his future is. I don't think he has the range or the quickness or the proper footwork at shortstop. I think he's a second baseman. And only time will tell. Keep him at short as long as you can, of course. Let me get a quick drink real fast. Sorry about that. 5th on our list is a gentleman named Imeldo Diaz. I am huge on Imeldo. Imeldo was actually acquired from the Boston Red Sox for international cap money on July 2nd. And he was pretty well thought of when the Red Sox signed him, and he just wasn't producing for the Red Sox, and the Cardinals got him for cash, and he played really, really well as a Johnson City Cardinal and then as a State College Spike. In 115 at-bats, he had 4 doubles, 5 home runs, and struck out to a 21-11 walk ratio. That's pretty good. There's some questions about his ability to stay at short, too. And as a matter of fact, there's a different video here somewhere, but there's a lesson to take in exactly how difficult it is to play shortstop at the major league level. Because these guys, Robertson, Edman, Diaz, our next guy up, they're all guys who can handle the position in the minors, but it's just when you get to the majors, it's a completely different beast. Imeldo's interesting. Keep an eye on him. He has a live bat, and there's just something about his game that reminds me of Alan Cordoba. And so keep an eye on him. And then our next man up, another ode to my former colleague Kellen Gardner, is Edwin Figueroa, who played for State College at the rookie level. I keep saying it. He reminds me of former Cardinals prospect Juan Herrera, Herrera was the gentleman that the Cardinals received in the Mark Zebchinski trade with Cleveland all those years ago. And Herrera was never really a prospect per se, but he was solid. And I would always be fielding the question, what's the deal with this Herrera kid? And, the truth was that Herrera was never going to be a major leaguer. He was never going to progress. And that's probably what's going to happen with Figueroa. But there's an interesting skill set, and he plays a pretty solid shortstop, and he doesn't strike out a ton. So it's just a matter of developing his pitch recognition and driving the ball, and he might end up being a really, really interesting guy. He's the interesting guy on this list. And, without getting into too much detail, we've been running for a little over 10 minutes, so I'll cut it off. This was the last of the groups. Thanks for sticking around. I've had a blast doing this. By now, we're a week into the launch of Birds on the Black, and what these guys have been doing, what they have in store for you to come, is incredible. Stay tuned, because it's lit, as the kids would say. I don't have kids. I don't really know what kids say, but if I were a kid, that's what I would say. So for everybody, all of us members of Birds on the Black, I'm Kyle Reis. You can find me on Twitter at KYLER416, and we've got so much great stuff planned for you with the prospects. So happy hunting.